Hello, and welcome to We Live for Saturday, your favorite college football podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike, and with me, as always, is your other co-host, John. John, how are you doing this evening?
Doing okay. It's warmer than I would like it to be this time of year, but it's that's just what it is, man. You know, we're in false fall, I think, is what they call it.
We got a
So
little bit of fall. We got just a
we did.
little bit, just a peak for that game we were at. We got some
Yeah.
fall, and it was nice.
Yeah,
But
it's just
now we're
disappointing.
looking at another 80-degree Saturday.
Yeah, which is not ideal in my opinion, but it's okay.
No.
It is what it is. I'm still riding high after everything I saw last week. Love the fact that our coach is capable of change.
Oh
It's
man,
it,
who knew?
it
Who knew?
He changes his best, at least for one game. And
We've
now,
been calling out for him to change his best. He changed his best. So let's hope he keeps it up.
that's right. That's right. So we now know it's possible. So he can't go back on it. So, yeah, man, things are all right. No major complaints here. Just looking forward to previewing these games. There's a lot of really fun ones this week. As
Yes.
always. I mean, what isn't? I don't believe in when there's pundits who talk about how there's like certain weeks of football that they're just not excited about during the college season.
Are you even a fan?
Exactly.
That's what I have to say. Are you even a
Yep.
fan? If you can't get excited about conference games, like we're now getting conference games, right? It's not
Mhm.
fully this is the last week of mostly out of conference play, but we're starting to get conference games. If you can't get excited about some conference games and some out of conference matchups that you don't get to see very often, then I don't know what to do for you.
Dude, even when we're going to talk about Michigan State versus Prairie View A&M. Like, I'm sorry, but like that still excites me. We get to see Big Ten teams do some things, try some stuff out, even if it is against a
I
not
loved how
so
you went to
fantastic.
the sicko game of the week. You didn't try to sell them like a MAC team or a Sun Belt team or something. You were like, let's go to the worst FCS team I can find.
But I'm just saying, even that like is what I'm talking about. Like, I will watch that game because we only
Yeah.
get so many Saturdays,
No,
man.
it's
Like,
true. It's
everyone
true.
counts. Everyone counts. So
Yeah.
we're going to talk about each one because we are excited about each one here. But before we go any further, I just want to make sure that if anybody out there who wants to know where they can find We Live for Saturday, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Podcast Addict. You can find us on Twitter at We Live for B1GSat. You can find Mike at Alibaba26, and you can find me, John, at Norwegian Gopher. You can also email us at We Live for Saturday, B1G at gmail.com.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for that. And please, if you are listening, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate that. It helps us grow and find a bigger audience. And so we're always trying to bring the podcast to more people. So please do like and subscribe. We really, really appreciate it.
Yes, please.
All right, John, anything else you want to talk about before we get into previewing these games?
Not at this time. Is there something else? Is there any Big Ten news? Anything we should touch on? I mean, I know there's a
Not
new
really.
AP
I mean, we
poll.
talked in the last pod about Northwestern making the quarterback change
Yep.
from Mike Wright to Jack Lausch.
Mm-hmm.
So we went over that. It's worth mentioning again. Now we mentioned it, but I don't think there's any other big Big Ten news.
I don't think so. It's been pretty quiet the last couple days, but a lot can happen. Maybe we'll be talking about a whole new thing. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe K-State's going to join the Big Ten by Sunday.
Stop it.
Who
No
knows?
realignment. No realignment talk. Don't even put that bad juju out there.
Okay. My bad.
We don't want to talk about which we're finally in the season. We're
I'll
finally
take it back.
talking about just ball.
I
Yes.
take it back.
Awesome. Yeah, don't even put that. Oh man, you're just incorrigible. All right.
Okay.
First up, we have a big one. It's the big noon game, in fact.
Ooh.
It is number 4, Alabama Crimson Tide, going to Camp Randall to visit the Wisconsin Badgers. This is an 11 a.m. game on Fox. It is Fox's, as I said, big noon kickoff game of the week. So expect a lot of people to watch this game, especially in the first half, to see how it plays out. And the line is Alabama -16. So Alabama, John, they
Mhm.
struggled well into the second half against South Florida last week before blowing them out in the fourth quarter. Star QB Jalen Milroe had a decent, if unspectacular, day, completing about 62% of his passes for 7.5 yards per attempt, 2 TDs, and no picks. However, it was far from an overwhelming performance from Milroe, and his QBR was just 50.5.
Mm.
Will Milroe continue to be just decent against Wisconsin, or will we see the more explosive, prolific version of Jalen Milroe like we saw in the first game? The answer to that will go a long way towards deciding this game, I think. Star running back Justice Haynes had a subpar week last week at just 3.5 yards per carry, so I expect him to bounce back from that. Well, he struggled. Jam Miller had a nice day running the ball at 9 yards per carry, although he did have a bad fumble. In the passing game, it's all about getting Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard going. Both guys had 4 grabs last week, but I expect those guys to catch more passes this week as Alabama tries to generate explosive plays against a Badger defense that has been fine, but not great in the first 2 weeks of the season. In a lot of ways, these two teams are similar in that they're both trying to find themselves on offense. The difference, in my opinion, is that this Wisconsin D has had some bad moments in the first week that have given me pause. If Wisconsin's going to compete with Bama into the fourth quarter, this team is going to have to make strides on both sides of the ball, I believe. And it's just absolutely essential that Will Pauling and Bryson Green get going in the passing game for Wisconsin.
Yeah.
This Gary raid needs prolific wide receiver play. So those guys have to get going. They're the top 2 targets. They have to be generating plays in the passing game. You might be able to scheme stuff up for a tight end and for another wide receiver just schematically, but like the guys who are going to win one-on-one, it's Will Pauling and to a lesser extent, Bryson Green. And those are the guys who you need to step up and make more plays than they've made so far. I see Alabama's dual threat QB and bevy of playmakers being a lot. So, John, how are you seeing this game playing out?
I think this is an incredibly, incredibly tough test for Wisconsin, especially after what we've seen these first 2 weeks. It's not that Wisconsin lacks talent. It just lacks, for the first time ever, enough talent or in depth, I think, at their offensive and defensive lines, especially their defensive line. And it just shows when you're able to see South Dakota and Western Michigan basically run on you at will, which is just not, like we've talked about in the last pod, what we're traditionally used to seeing with Wisconsin. I just don't see how Hunter Wohler is going to be able to do everything, because he's going to have to, in my opinion, from what I've seen so far, unless someone on the defensive side of the ball shows up and just has plays with their freaking hair on fire. I don't see how Hunter Wohler can win this game against Alabama, which is just basically still full of, how many people came back? I'm not entirely sure, but a vast majority of their players came back last year.
Kalen DeBoer managed to keep a lot of people, and he also brought in guys to supplement. So that's a stacked roster.
Absolutely.
That's a roster that's still been recruiting at a top 3 level perennially. And they lost some guys in the transfer portal after Saban retired, but they kept the core of that team.
Yeah, so I think they got their hands full. Offensively, Tyler Van Dyke better look like he did a couple years ago, because I'm not seeing it now. If Phil Longo wants to be taken seriously in this dairy raid being taken seriously, it's got to work, and it's got to work now. There's no more time. It's done. And I haven't seen it yet.
This is the measuring stick game.
Yep.
I'm not saying Wisconsin has to win this game.
No.
But they got to show something.
Yep.
They got to show in this game that they can be competitive, and we can see a vision of the team that Luke Fickell promised us when he took this job.
Yep.
Of having that explosive offense to go with a dynamic defense. And right now they're coming up short on both sides of the ball. So this is not a great time to get Alabama, or maybe it is a great time. Maybe this will help Wisconsin raise their game because they're going to have to. But I'm surprised that the Badger defense, especially the defense, the offense too, but especially the defense, has not been more overwhelming against lesser competition.
Yeah, that's where I'm at as well. I expected the offense in the new system still to maybe take some time
Yes.
Maybe another year, but I expected it to look better than it does now.
But
But
I thought they'd be able to lean on like a really good defense.
yes, and it's crazy how, in such a short period of time when you lost Jim Leonard, how it's dropped significantly in my opinion.
Oh
And
yeah, this is
that's scary.
not a Jim Leonard level unit at all.
Yeah, and it's scary how quickly that changed. So, yeah, I mean, if they can stay competitive, good for them. Then okay, then we can work with that, and I think maybe they can move forward once we break into conference play. But right now, man, I just haven't seen it, and this is a big one for sure to overcome.
Yeah. So I think Wisconsin will have some success early on offense. I think Luke Fickell's probably been scheming for this game for a long time.
Hmm.
I think that'll get the home crowd riled up. I think Camp Randall will be rocking in the first half. I just think after halftime, Jalen Milroe hits a couple explosive plays, and then suddenly a close game becomes not a close game.
Hmm.
So I've got the Alabama Crimson Tide 31, the Wisconsin Badgers 14.
Yeah, I have the Alabama Crimson Tide 38 and the Wisconsin Badgers 17.
Yeah, so we see pretty similar games.
Pretty similar games. I agree. I think there may be a couple times in the first half where Wisconsin might kind of keep it within a score, but Alabama, I think they're going to be in control the entire time. I don't think it's ever really going to look like Wisconsin has an edge, unfortunately.
I mean, we'll see. I have hope that Wisconsin could come out and win the first half, right? Like, I think that that's possible. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I think it's possible. They come out fast, they get a touchdown, maybe force a turnover, something like that, and like feel good about themselves. I just don't think we haven't seen the explosion and we haven't seen the defensive depth yet.
Yeah.
And I can't pick Wisconsin to win this game when we haven't seen that yet, when we know what they're going against in Alabama.
Yeah, if they are able to do what you're saying, and even if they're able to work a little bit into the third quarter, I know there's no moral victories, but it would be a little bit of a moral victory. So, in my opinion, and I would take with that, and hopefully you can build on what you learned from that. So,
yeah,
we'll see.
Awesome. All right, moving right along, we have the Arkansas State Red Wolves visiting the now number 17 Michigan Wolverines. This is an 11 a.m. game on the Big Ten Network. The line is Michigan negative 23.5. Arkansas State is 2-0 after surviving a close game with Central Arkansas and a close one with Tulsa. The Red Wolves have so far been able to close out games, so we'll see if that skill translates against Michigan. They are led by last year's Sun Belt Frosh of the Year, QB Jalen Rayner. So far, Rayner is completing 57% of his passes this year for 7.2 yards per attempt, 3 TDs and 2 picks, along with 4 sacks. So Rayner's numbers are okay, but nothing spectacular. He's also chipped in 122 rushing yards over 2 games, so he's a threat with his feet as well. So Michigan has to be prepared both on designed runs and on scrambles when the play breaks down. Corey Rucker, man, he's a star at wide receiver. And so far, he has not disappointed with 239 yards receiving on an absurd 18.4 yards per catch and 2 TDs. Rucker is the focal point of the offense, and if Michigan wants to get stops, they have to stop Corey Rucker. Arkansas State had a suspect defense last year, and so far it's been pretty suspect in 2024 as well. Expect Michigan to attack what has been a leaky defensive unit for Arkansas State. Red Wolves have high hopes for this year, and justifiably so, but Michigan is desperate to play better after the debacle against Texas. Davis Warren was just 22 for 33 last week for just 6.2 yards per attempt and had the 2 picks and a QBR of 47.6. So that was no good. Point blank, John, Davis Warren's got to play better this week. If he's going to be the guy, he has to play better this week right now. And he's got to find a way to generate more explosive plays in this offense. And you know what, man? Donovan Edwards finally had a decent, I guess, if unspectacular day last week. He needs to build off of that because Michigan needs this running game to produce now. And and Edwards and Khalil Mullings have been inconsistent through a couple games. The offensive line's been inconsistent. Like this is not the dominant unit we saw last season. We need to see them take strides. in the running game. And then the D-line, I don't get it. D-line, they have all the guys back. They've got Mason Graham.
Yeah.
They've got Kenneth Grant. And right now, those guys are not playing at the level that they played at last year. They're just not. So I don't know what happened to the dominance. I mean, they were unblockable last year, John. Totally unblockable.
Yep.
And I don't know where that dominance has gone. And then who's going to step up at receiver and help Colston Loveland out? Is it Samaj Morgan or who's it going to be? Because they need somebody. They need more production from that receiver position. So yeah, how are you seeing this one?
I mean, I'm
like kind of mad at Michigan.
I am too. I'm like everything. Yeah, I mean, I could definitely hear it. I could hear it in your voice, the frustration, because and I think we all have the right to be. And there's of course going to be a transition, and there's going to be some things that are going to be odd, and they've lost a lot of other key players in certain positions. I get it. I understand. There may be some odd things at the beginning of a season, but for certain positions, especially like at the defensive line, that position group is just baffling. I really don't get it either. I expected Edwards and Mullings to look a lot better as well. This just looks like a team that's a shadow of itself. I know, yeah, sure, it's only been a couple of games, and you played a very, very good, probably national title contender team in Texas. And, but I'm just not seeing any semblance of the same team as last year at this time. And I hope for their sake that they can get it together. And this is, I think it's a get right game. Yes, there's some potential here for Arkansas State to be in it. They have some legitimate weapons. But I think that, depth of talent with Michigan is going to win out here in the end. But they're really going to have to work on that, and they're going to have to figure this out. Their quarterback is absolutely going to have to get better. At least we've seen Edwards and Mullings a little bit, but mainly Edwards. We've seen him have success on the field. We've seen that defensive line do what they do, or what we know they can do.
Yeah.
But we got to see this quarterback. We got to see at least one receiver down the field that isn't Colston Loveland. And that's it. So like, if somebody doesn't emerge this week, it could be an even longer season for Michigan than what they're anticipating at this point in time.
I mean, if Davis Warren can't play better, then we have to have a serious talk about Jack Tuttle.
Yep.
I mean, that's where we're at with Michigan.
Yep. Absolutely.
That's where we are.
For sure.
All right. I have got the Michigan Wolverines 41, the Arkansas State Red Wolves 3. Michigan needs a big performance. I think they get it at home. I think they got their starters out of the game early in the second, in the halfway through the third quarter, end of the third quarter kind of thing. And this is a cakewalk.
I have the Michigan Wolverines 31, and I have Arkansas State 10. I think there's going to be a little bit of a scare early on.
Okay.
And I think there's still going to be and people are going to be frustrated and what is going on here? But I think by the end of the second quarter, they're going to get their stuff together. And I think the defense is going to be the one to start that. I think they're going to be the ones who are going to be getting after it, and that it's going to kind of start some momentum, maybe get a turnover or something like that, fumble recovery. And then that'll be it. The momentum will go in Michigan's favor, and then the offense should hopefully take over. Hopefully the running game, both, the passing and the running game in the second half. That's kind of how I see it going. So I could see it being a little close in the first half, but then by the end, Michigan should take over.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Next game, we have the Central Michigan Chippewas visiting the Illinois Illini in the how do we still have Indigenous peoples inspired team names in 2024 game? Just saying, folks. All right. It's an 11 a.m. game on Peacock. The line is Illinois -18. Central Michigan crushed Central Connecticut before getting crushed by an average FIU squad. So the Chippewas haven't exactly covered themselves in glory this season. QB Joe Labus has completed a respectable 60% of his passes for 7.8 yards per attempt, 5 TDs, but also 5 picks. So Labus can make things happen, but he's also prone to turning the ball over, which should play in the
Wow. How long has he been playing now? Sorry.
No, man.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
I feel that's all right.
He's been around. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Unless it's a different one. Unless it's a different Joe Labas, but I imagine it's got to be the same guy from Iowa, right?
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Continue.
Yeah.
My bad.
No worries. He also, along with making big plays, he throws a lot of picks. So that should play into the hands of an opportunistic Illini D that recorded a pick 6 last week against Kansas, which was the difference in the game, actually.
Yep. Yes, it was.
Miles Bailey appears to be the top running back, although they give reps to like 4 guys. There are still questions about what pecking order at receiver will be for Central Michigan. And I don't think it's going to matter much this week. Look for Caden Fagan to have a big day running the ball against Central Michigan. I would also expect Luke Altmaier to do some things, both with his arm and his legs.
Mm-hmm.
We know Pat Bryan, Zachary Franklin can make big plays. I think those guys will show out as well. And maybe we'll even see them get Malik Elzy involved a little bit so they can build that depth at receiver. I'd like to see that. And yeah, I think Illinois plays down to the competition a little bit after such a big program win last week. But that's okay because Illinois will eventually kick it into gear and win big. So I've got the Illinois Illini 38, Central Michigan 6.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's just so hard. It's going to be so difficult for Central Michigan to stop that running attack. And this is definitely a game where I think Brett is just going to just keep pounding them and beating them into submission, and it'll probably happen pretty early. I could see it happening, starting. You'll see it cracking at the end of the second quarter, and then by the third, it's just going to open, just break wide open. And I can see Fagan, I can see Laffery, just running at will. Yeah, I don't think this is going to be particularly close. I think Central Michigan is significantly overmatched here. I think I have Illinois winning 42, Central Michigan to 10.
All right. Next up, we've got a game that I like to call. People don't call it this all the time anymore, but I like to call it the Civil War.
Yeah.
Oregon at Oregon State.
Hell yeah.
This is the 2:30 p.m. game on Fox. The line is Oregon -16.
Well, this is an interesting one. This is always a big deal. I love this game. I've always enjoyed this game. After what we've seen going on with what'd you say?
It's a great game.
Great yeah. After what we've seen with Oregon coming off to these slow starts and getting, close wins, this is going to be a tough one. And you have to imagine setting the stage. You're now in the still called the Pac-12, but there's 2. And you have been ignored. You've been told you're not good enough. Like nobody wants you. Your main rival goes off to the Big Ten with this massive deal, and they're going to make
all the money,
even more money than they already have. And
you're going to make way less money. Yeah.
Yep.
It's rough.
So it is particularly rough for Oregon State. So I have to imagine that the Beavers are going to be out for blood with this.
Oh, and yeah.
We are going to have to see now. When I liked when I was watching the last week's game, I just kind of went through a little bit of film with Oregon State, and I saw wide receiver Trey Walker, who's going to be a major threat, I think, down the field. Both of their running backs, Hankerson and Griffin, look pretty solid, and then their tight end, who was getting a ton of targets as well, Bryce Caulfield, was also really, really effective down the stretch against San Diego State, which is a solid program. So, but they ended up shutting them out 21-0. Now, what I also really liked was that their quarterback, Giovanni McCoy, was also very, very mobile, and their offensive line looked to be doing a really good job being able to pass blocking and also open up enough lanes for their running backs. I have a little concern, or a lot of concern, actually, for Oregon State's offensive line. Oregon State's defensive line was very effective. Clearly, they were able to keep San Diego State from gaining no more on the ground of 72 yards, and kept them only at 107 yards passing. Uh, everything I've seen so far with Oregon over the last couple of weeks, that if they can continue to get pressure on Gabriel, it's just going to continue to be a problem. And they're not executing at the line of scrimmage. And I think that Oregon State is going to come out with guns ablazing. And Oregon should be nervous about this. And I think the pressure, too, is even more so on Oregon now than ever before. So this game is going to mean a lot in a lot of ways. Now, if Oregon State comes out and actually wins in this, it's going to make a huge statement for who they are. It's going to mean big things nationally.
Oh yeah.
Look at what you left behind, and now you took Oregon over us type of deal. Like, they've got everything to fight for here, and I think and nothing to lose. So Oregon is in a dangerous spot, man. I really think they are. They have a ton of talent, as we've talked about, but can they make that talent do anything or do what it's supposed to do? Do what we expected it to do? If they can't get the running game going, if they can't protect their quarterback, now Dylan Gabriel, of course, is going to get what he wants. He's going to score some points because he does. That's what he does. He's amazing. But I don't know, man. I'd be really nervous about this game. I think it's going to be close. But and I know Oregon State has a new head coach. I don't know. I think it's going to be close. I'm looking at this with Oregon State 24, Oregon 20. Yep, I'm calling an upset.
Upset alert.
I am.
Wow. Upset
I just think
in the Civil War.
I think Oregon has gotten away with it twice.
No, they did. They fully got away with it twice. I mean, they needed 2 special teams touchdowns to beat Boise State. I
think their luck is going to run out this week.
Wow. I love it. That's a ballsy pick.
Don't hate me, Oregon fans.
No, it's good. God, I think that's interesting. I would be fascinated to see that happen. I would love to see the game play out and be close the way you're doing it. I kind of think that Oregon State's going to punch really hard in the first half. I think it's going to be really close and back and forth. And I think Dan Lanning's going to get the boys in at halftime and be like, hey, we didn't pay you $1 bajillion to come here and do this. We paid you to come contend for a national title. Let's circle the wagons. Let's rally. Let's go get them. Mm-hmm. So I think Oregon pulls away in the second half. So I've got the Oregon Ducks 34, Oregon State Beavers 17. But I'm thinking at half. I think at half, I'm like 17-14, like 21-17, somewhere in there. Like, I'm not sure who's ahead kind of thing. I just think that at a certain point, this Oregon talent is so overwhelming. It has to show up on the field. It has to. Doesn't it?
Well, I mean, that's what I've been saying. I've been picking them by a lot the last 2 weeks. So I'm sorry. I'm not buying it yet until you got to show me. You got to show me.
That's fair. That's fair, John.
I just feel like their luck is running out. Now, if they lose this game, like I'm predicting them to.
If they lose this game.
But like, is that now going to wake the sleeping giant? Is that now when they get to conference play, they are going to have something to work for and prove? Because I think they came into this season thinking already the media darlings, already a major pick for a national title winner. Mm-hmm. And do they need something like this? Do they need a loss to Oregon State in order for them to become the team that we expect them to be?
Sort of like an Ohio State 2014 argument that they need to be woken up and shaken. Yeah, does Oregon State, they have some weapons. Do they have the firepower to get over the top? Maybe they do. I mean, Boise State almost did.
Yep.
So maybe Oregon State does. I hope you're right and it's close. I would love that to be a close game.
Yeah.
Be a lot of fun to watch.
For sure.
All right, John, with the big upset. I love that. Getting it going. My blood's pumping now. Talking about upsets gets it going. All right. Next up, we have number 18. Don't ask me how they're still ranked. Notre Dame Fighting Irish visiting the Purdue Boilermakers. This is a 2:30 p.m. game on CBS. So it's the big afternoon CBS game, and the line is Notre Dame by 10. First off, John, I'll let you take the lead on this, but I'm somewhat surprised that the Irish are only favored by 10 points. I think that shows that the Sharps believe that Purdue has a non-zero chance of winning this game.
Mm-hmm.
And after Notre Dame lost to NIU, you can understand why people think Purdue has a chance, because NIU is an average MAC team, and they went into South Bend and beat the Irish.
Well, I think that it helps that Riley Leonard is going to be questionable for this game.
Oh yeah, that's big for Purdue because he has not been he's been hurt and not effective.
He had a 25.8 QBR this last game, which is horrible.
That's rough.
I saw him running the ball more than passing when I was doing research on this. I mean, dude, last week I was watching the game with Notre Dame, and this is not a top 10 team the way they were predicted to be. I'm not entirely sure this is a top 25 team, even with a healthy Riley Leonard.
No, I watched every snap of that NIU game.
Yeah.
And that was wild.
Yeah.
And NIU, it was not fluky.
No.
It wasn't like NIU was just like being scrappy and getting lucky. They straight up outplayed Notre Dame.
100%. 100%. So you're going to see, if Riley Leonard is healthy, you're probably going to see a lot of design QB runs, but I don't think they have the receivers who can consistently come down with the ball. There was a ton of drops. They have a pretty decent running back with Jeremiah Love, but their O-line had a lot of trouble dealing with the pressure and the pass protection. And then, Riley Leonard also threw a pick or two. So there was just a lot of bad decisions, a lot of bad all over the place offensively with Notre Dame.
Well, I wonder, Jeremiah Love, just give me 1 second. Jeremiah Love, he's pretty good, but is Jadarian Price going to show us anything? He was supposed to be the other guy. So are we going to see that at running back or not? But sorry, go on with what you're saying.
Yeah, no. I totally agree. I just saw a lot of bad all over the place on that offense. It just did not look good. It wasn't in sync. It was not clicking at any point in time during the game. No. I never felt that Notre Dame had a hold of this, at any time. It was always kind of up in the air. And obviously Northern Illinois was the one who came out on top, and rightfully so. They were the better team on that field.
Yeah.
Defensively, they have a hard time stopping the run too. Notre Dame has a hard time stopping the run. They have a hard time getting pressure on the quarterback. Their secondary had holes all over the field. This is a team that is, perennially talked about of being in the top 15 at least every year, if not, more than likely, almost always top 10, but on a bad year, I guess 15. But Purdue, dude, man, I'm looking at this now. Purdue has only played one game, and it was an awful team, no doubt. And
but you can't play much better than they did.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think Purdue, you have Hudson Card, who we've known has had the talent for so many years and has been waiting for a time where he has a decent enough offensive line to give him that protection so he can make the plays down the field that we know he's capable of making. And I think they have it this year. I think they've got a solid running back, someone who can be effective, which like I said, Notre Dame's defensive line has trouble with all of that. They have some solid targets down the field. I think Purdue could cause some problems. If Notre Dame is still hungover from the loss last week, which they might, and, I can see this happening where the first half Notre Dame still comes out flat. And Hudson Card just starts out hot. And if they can get up by a score or possibly two, going into the half, they might be able to put this away. I think Notre Dame's defense will probably get better towards the end of the game and maybe start to limit and figure out Hudson Card and be able to stop Crazy Legs from doing what he does. But I'm again, you know what? I'm picking the upset. I'm going with Purdue.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm going Purdue 28, Notre Dame 21.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think Purdue's going to have a lot of success early. I think Hudson Card finally has an offensive line that can block for him. I don't love their receivers, Purdue's, but I do think Hudson Card is good enough to get guys the ball and make them look more open than they are, and throw it to open areas and help them out that way. So I do think Hudson Card is going to have some success. Notre Dame's defense is pretty stout. So I think Notre Dame will eventually adjust and shut things down a little bit. The thing for me, man, is Steve Angeli any good as Notre Dame's backup quarterback? Is he any good? Because, like, I think they need him. Because the thing about Riley Leonard is that so much of his game is running the ball. And if he's not healthy enough to run the ball, then he's really not healthy enough to play.
Yeah.
Because that's a big part of what he does.
Yep.
And he needs that dual threat ability. He's not a guy who can just, okay, now I'm going to reinvent myself as a pocket passer. No, that's not who he is.
Yep.
So I think unless he's all the way healthy and can run around and like do all the Riley Leonard things, then I think it's time to see the backup. And that worries me.
Absolutely. I mean, if that's what you got, if Riley Leonard is your best at Notre Dame, then I'm not sure. It definitely causes some concern for their backup, in my opinion, because I was not impressed with what I saw from Riley Leonard. Throwing the ball, not great.
I mean, he's so clearly hurt.
Yeah.
I almost can't judge him by what he's done so far because I just don't think that's like, I feel like that's not the guy we even saw last year. So that's the thing. I think they have to go to the backup. I think Notre Dame's going to win this one up front. I think it's going to be ugly. I think they're going to pound. And I think we're going to see a game where the Irish win 24-17 over the Boilermakers.
Okay.
So I do think this is a gut check game. This is a circle the wagons game for Notre Dame. They need this. They need this more than Purdue does.
Yeah, true.
They do. And I think they're going to come out and play a little desperate. And I don't think that's always going to be good. I think that in the first half, that could lead to it being tense and close. But I think eventually, I don't think they're going to break it open. Like, I don't, because I think that they need a backup quarterback to play, and we have no idea how good this backup quarterback is. So I don't think they're going to score a whole bunch of points. But I do think that that depth of talent on the line of scrimmage is going to be enough for Notre Dame to get over the top and win this game.
I guess I believe in Hudson Card more than you do, I guess. That's
hey, I like Hudson Card. No, but you are an evangelist for him.
I am. I have been for a while now. Yeah.
Yes, you've been on him for a long time. So that's fair. All right. Speaking of a game we teased earlier, the Prairie View A&M Panthers visiting the Michigan State Spartans. It's a 2:30 p.m. game on the Big Ten Network, and there's no line because they're a bad FCS team. So they lost to Texas Southern 27-9. They beat Northwestern State 37-31. Cameron Peters plays QB for the Panthers and is completing just 53% of his passes for 7.4 yards per attempt, 2 TDs and 2 picks. Wisham and McDowell are the running backs. Wide receiver Shamar Savage is a star with 238 yards receiving already. He's a guy to watch. Aiden Childs and Nate Carter are going to do whatever they want.
Yep.
Nick Marshall's going to do whatever he wants. This isn't going to be a game. This is going to be a beating.
Yep. That's it. Yeah. I mean, I was just going to say they lost to Texas Southern. So, what more can I say about that? This is a terrible team.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's just going to be a glorified scrimmage. I think this is just for Michigan State, just to kind of work out some more kinks, get Aiden Childs more comfortable in the pocket, maybe find another couple of receivers to throw to, and build up that trust there. So
figure out what that pecking order is at receiver.
Exactly. I think we figured it out last week, though. I mean, that true freshman.
Oh, Marshall's the truth. He's number 1, but who's 2?
Is it Foster?
Is it Foster?
Yeah. Is he going to show up? Is he going to do what we were hoping he was going to do?
He's been around a long time. You think he'd show up and do something.
Yeah.
He's not the number 1 guy anymore, but he could still be number 2.
Mm-hmm. I want to see Velling get more targets too.
Yeah, he's good.
So, I think it's just a chance for everyone to get more comfortable in that system, which I think they will defensively too. I think they're just going to be able to learn a lot more about themselves. And that's about it. I'm not seeing any kind of competition here. I think it's going to be an absolute blowout here. No question.
Yeah, I've got Sparty 48, Prairie View A&M 0.
Yeah. I'm not sure what kind of head coach he is, but I'm gonna go Sparty 55,
Okay.
Prairie View 0. I'm
We're going to
hoping he
find
goes.
out if he's that kind of coach.
I kind of hope he is. That's what I want to see.
Yeah.
I mean,
Fair
I'm
enough.
sorry, Prairie View, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we have the Nevada Wolfpack coming to Dinkytown to play the Minnesota Golden Gophers.
Mm-hmm.
This is a 2:30 p.m. game on the Big Ten Network. The line is Minnesota by 17.5. Nevada lost a heartbreaker to new ACC squad SMU 29-24. Then they beat Troy 28-26 in a stunner. And then they lost a heartbreaker to Georgia Southern 20-17. So Nevada's played a lot of close games already. And they won't be fazed by that close game pressure if this one ends up tight. They won't be worried about it because they've been through it before. QB Brendan Lewis is completing an absurd 67% of his passes with 5 TDs and 0 picks. So a really impressive start for him. At running back, Savion Red and Lewis himself have been the top rushers for the Wolfpack. And Jaden Smith and Cortez Braum are a good receiving duo and lead an impressive Wolfpack attack. Minnesota will want to continue their success in the passing game and use that passing ability to open up the running game. Head coach PJ Fleck talked about that a lot after the Rhode Island game, how they want to be a team that passes to set up the run and how that's kind of the identity that the Golden Gophers are trying to create this year. And that's kind of the identity they went with last week.
Yep.
I personally think Max Brosmer needs to get Daniel Jackson going a little more. He's only had 8 catches through 2 games. And frankly, that's just not enough Daniel Jackson action for me. I think he should be getting, 7 to 8 balls a game at least. But I want to see the other receivers develop too. Elijah Spencer, Lemeki Brockington, Christian Driver, the tight ends as well, like Jamison Gears. And it's just important also for Minnesota to work on its running game and get Darius Taylor and Marcus Major going.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of the goals for Minnesota. Nevada is a sneaky team. They run their offense is very similar to the Kansas offense. Mm-hmm. It's very option-y, but not like the old school banging your head against the wall triple option, but like a grown-up modern shotgun spread option.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something the Gophers are going to have to be really, really disciplined, because if an option, you have to do your job over and over and over again every play. And if you ever don't do it, then you get burned for 60 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah. Well, talking about discipline, that's one thing Nevada has not been. They've had a lot of penalties, which is, I think, probably what cost them a couple games. Yeah. They might have come out with...
They could easily be 3-0.
Absolutely.
They were very close in their losses.
Yep. Yeah. If it wasn't for those penalties, they could at least have probably a couple more, a couple wins. I think they've got a good head coach. I think he can develop that team well. I think he's definitely someone.
Jeff Choate, right?
Oh, yep. I think
he's a good coach.
Absolutely. So you got to take these guys seriously for sure. It's definitely a step up from Rhode Island, but it's still a step down from North Carolina. So it's kind of somewhere in the middle there, in my opinion. Yep. I know Minnesota in the past has had a little bit of problems here and there dealing with the option, like an option running QB.
Not under Fleck.
Well,
under Fleck, we've done really well with option attacks. Remember the bowl game against Georgia Tech?
That's true. That is true.
And I think we played, I forget which team. It was also a triple option team, but I think Georgia Southern or one of those teams used to be before Clay Helton. Anyway, go on.
Well, I think with this, we're just going to need to continue to see that tackling gets better, or is as good as it was last week. It needs to stay that way, and because they can be a little slippery. And they got a couple decent running backs as well. So I think Minnesota really just needs to come out with a fast start here. I want to see us get that running game going. I want to see our offensive line gel. I want to find some people, some solidify some positions and not rotate a bunch of people. I know that's what Fleck wants to do, but I'd like to see some guys get comfortable where they're at. And still work that passing game, but maybe lean a little bit more on that running game and find some success there. I don't think Nevada looks that impressive on the defensive line, especially against the run. So
No.
hopefully that works in our favor. The secondary looks a little stronger, but I don't think their offense is their strength. Even saying those things about the defense is their strength. So we're going to see. I think Minnesota should be able to take care of business. I think it's obviously not going to be a total blowout like Rhode Island. But
no, I
think
expect them
Minnesota
to get
should win.
across the 50.
Yes, absolutely.
Which Rhode Island did not do.
Yep. I think Minnesota wins, but there might be some scary moments here and there.
Yeah. What do you got for a score?
I have Minnesota 35, Nevada 20.
Oh, okay. So you think Nevada's really going to show up?
I do.
Yeah. I think Nevada's going to have some success really early because I'm sure they have something in their arsenal that they've been saving for the Gophers.
Yep.
And Choate is a good coach. And I'm sure a good coach is probably good enough, even with inferior talent, to scheme up a score or two in the first half before we kind of catch on to what they're doing. But ultimately, this is an Option E team. Fleck has done really well against Option E teams. He has. I think he's got a good plan for attacking them. He talked about, I remember when they played Georgia Tech in the bowl game, they talked about being on an assembly line. And sometimes it's boring to do the same job over and over and over again. But like, you just have to do the same job over and over and over again. And that's kind of what it's going to be a little bit like on Saturday. So I think Nevada has some success early, but ultimately the Gophers are improving. I think they showed a lot last Saturday, and I think we're going to see an even performance, offensive and defensive. And I think the Minnesota Golden Gophers will finish with 38 points to the Nevada Wolfpack's 13.
Okay.
And I just think once the passing game gets going, I think we're going to run all over them. Because I think that that's going to be hard. I think that they're going to show up ready to stop the run because that's what you have to, that's what 7 years of PJ Fleck has taught you, or 8 years of PJ Fleck has taught you, that you have to show up and stop the run. But I think PJ is going to come out throwing. I do. And I think he's going to throw to set up the run. And when we do turn to the run, they're going to have abandoned the box to the same extent. And then I think we're going to run all over them.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're going to come out pretty strong in the beginning of the game and score the vast majority of their points. They might get a couple scores there. And then I think Minnesota will totally take over. And maybe in garbage time is where maybe we get a little lazy and they're able to kind of make it look closer than what it actually is.
I don't know, man. Heatherman's pretty intense. I feel like he's got the guys going hard in garbage time so far.
Yeah. Well, I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm totally wrong.
Yeah, me too. It would be good to see that. And that is a game that I will be attending as well. So I will let you know how that goes.
Heck yeah.
Next up, we have a little game they call the Apple Cup. The Washington State Cougars coming to Seattle to play the Washington Huskies. It's the 2:30 p.m. game on Peacock, which I don't know why the Apple Cup is on Peacock. That seems weird to me.
Yeah.
But such is life. Line is Wazzu, is Washington by 4.5.
This is another one, same as the Civil War, man. This is a team that has something to prove. I think last week's victory 37-16 over the Texas Tech Raiders, the Cougars were able to show something, and they looked like they were not only effective all over on the ground with their ridiculous quarterback, who is a prolific scrambler, John Mateer. He didn't throw for much, only 115 yards, but he was impossible to contain. When he wanted to move or go escape the pocket, he just went wherever he wanted to go.
He's an athlete.
He's a super athlete. So
yeah,
I think he led the team with 197 yards rushing, 9.4 yards per carry with 1 touchdown, and a 68-yard long run at one point. So
wow,
yeah,
that's impressive.
He is an athlete. He's tough to contain. I definitely think this is a very, very dangerous team. Very unpredictable. They've also got a really good freshman running back, Wayshawn Parker, who can move. Their other running back, Schlenbecker, is their power back, so he's more of their battering ram, but he's solid. So, and their O line was able to block. So I think their O line is really good. I think they've got a good They had this amazing TD catch by Kyle Williams, who was like a total tip drill, like with amazing concentration. He was able to come down with it, which is incredible. So I think that Washington's defense is going to have their hands full. They might be up to the task, but I think this is going to be the first real test they've faced all year. This is not Weber State.
Nope.
This is not Eastern Michigan. This is a real frickin' team with a ton of talent.
Yeah.
So and the other thing I was really it was really interesting to see with Washington State is their defense and how hard they play. This defense doesn't just want to take you. It will do everything it can to cause turnovers. It will try to strip the ball whenever they can. They will not only try to tackle Jonah Coleman, they will try to rip that ball out every single time that he has the ball. Now, from time to time, I was able to see that they had a few guys out of position with some busted coverages, but nothing terrible. They were more of like a bend, don't break. They would get in the reds. They would allow the Red Raiders to get into the red zone, but hold them to a field goal. So it was a pretty solid defense overall. I didn't see a lot of major issues against another FBS team from the Big 12. So, and Washington State was able to win convincingly without having to throw the ball that much. Maybe they will in this game with Washington. Washington is definitely going to have their hands full. Like I said, I think that this is going to be their first true test. Are we going to see Jonah Coleman continue to be their main weapon on the offense? I know Will Rogers can sling it. I know he had some success last week, but is he going to be able to do that against a team of this caliber? We have not seen it yet. So I think this is going to be really interesting. We do know that Washington has talent still. I think Jed Fish, this is going to be a big statement win for him if he can pull it out. But it's also, again, you're playing a team that I think, just like Oregon State, who has nothing to lose.
Yep.
So they're going to come out swinging, and they're going to come out swinging real hard. And from what I saw, this team is really fun to watch. Washington State is really electric. They got playmakers all over. So I'd be a little nervous if I were Washington.
I'm really impressed by this Washington State roster.
Me too, man.
What they were able to put together as not a Power 5 school anymore, right, is kind of amazing. It is a Power 4 level roster, seemingly.
Yep.
And they are impressive. They have dynamic playmakers. They have athletes. They have a scrappy defense. And, they've shown they can beat FBS Power Conference talent.
Mm-hmm.
They've done it.
Yep.
So
by a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I don't even know what the score of that game was, but I know
it was 37-16.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a big kick in. And then on the other side, look, I feel like it was always going to be a game. There was always going to be a game this year. And I'm not saying it's for sure going to be this one.
Mm-hmm.
But there was always going to be a game this year where Washington got exposed because its offensive line isn't very good.
Yeah.
Point blank. And I think that offensive line, or maybe even if maybe it'll become good, but it's a bunch of guys who transferred and things like that. And it's kind of jumbled together. And my fear is this is going to be the game where Washington gets exposed up front. And that Washington State is going to have them on their back foot. Jonah Coleman is a good back, but if the offensive line isn't getting the job done, then that puts a lot of pressure on Will Rogers.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to me. Can Washington run the ball?
Mm-hmm.
If Washington can run the ball, I think they win the game. But I'm not convinced that they're going to be able to run the ball. I think that, well, let me put it like this. I think the team that runs the ball better is going to win the game.
Yeah. I agree. I think that this Washington State, I think Mateer is more of an athlete than Will Rogers. I think Will Rogers is
definitely more of an athlete.
Yeah. I think Will Rogers is a better passer.
Yes.
But Mateer is such a threat everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
And he's scary. So I have this game again. I have a really close, but I have it Washington. Washington 30, Washington State 35.
So you're picking the upset.
I am again. Yeah,
All right.
I gotta see it, man, and I just don't think Washington has been tested. I don't think they have.
Well, they haven't been tested. They played some really bad teams.
So, and I just think Washington State has so much to prove. Now, I could be wrong about both Oregon and Washington, absolutely, but I think there's more on the line for both of those teams, Oregon State and Washington State, than there is for now the current.
Oh, it's their Super Bowl for sure.
Absolutely,
no question about it. I have got a close game. I think that it's going to be really tight in the first half. I think it's going to be the kind of game that comes down to which team wins the turnover battle. And I think the team that wins the turnover battle is going to be the team that runs the ball better. And I think the team that runs the ball better is going to be Washington State. And I have Washington State 28, Washington 24.
Yep.
So I'm also picking the upset. I'm with you finally. You picked three of them though so far.
I did. I'm all about it.
I was all like, "Ooh, I'm picking an upset. Look at me. Good for me."
I'm all about the chaos this week.
Yeah, you are. All right. Moving on. We have Troy at Iowa. Now, this is a 3 p.m. game on FS1. The line is Iowa by 22.
This game, this just has to be a get-right game for Iowa.
Has to.
They got to show that they can throw the ball. Obviously, we know they're going to run the ball, and they will. They will run the ball at will against this Troy defense. I literally really the only note I have here is just shouldn't have a problem running the ball. That's it. No. But it's you got to show this fan base. You got to show everyone else that this is a team that people were expecting to win possibly 10 games this season.
Contend for the playoff. Yeah,
with this massive, I shouldn't say massively improved, but to get it to a decent offense and have it where it's like an average to possibly an above average offense, which is actually would be a massive improvement.
Yes.
So we got to see it this week. We have to see Cade McNamara come out and look the way he did, and you have to give this team an absolute and utter beatdown. And if you don't, if this doesn't, and maybe if it looks like Illinois State, where it doesn't turn into a beatdown until you get to the fourth quarter, that's not acceptable in my opinion. I know
you don't want it to take to the second half for Cade McNamara to start connecting with receivers. You want to come out and you want to hit him right away from the start.
Yeah, you got to be
this 6-6 at halftime nonsense.
No, if you're not up by 3 scores at the end of the half against this Troy team, then they're I'm not saying there's a big problem, but I'd be wondering still. So that's really all with this game. It's all going to be looking at Cade McNamara and that passing game. That's what I'm going to be watching the whole time.
Yeah, me too. I mean, we know they're going to run the ball. Cade's got to bounce back. He's got to have, and guys got to step up at receiver too.
Yeah.
Guys aren't getting open for him. They're not always catching the ball. They got to help him out too. But Cade has to play a lot better.
Yeah.
I mean, he has to play a lot better than he played against Iowa State. That was, especially in the second half, that was really painful. And it was worse than I thought he would ever play, kind of.
Yeah.
And he really, 99 yards passing is just on I can't remember how many attempts, but it was close to 30.
Yeah.
Well, 99 yards passing on that many attempts that's bad.
Friend of the pod, Hawkeye Matt, called it preseason. I don't know if you remember, but he talked to us and he said that he doesn't believe in Cade being the guy.
That's right.
Maybe we see Brendan Sullivan. What do you think?
No. You think Kirk's gonna admit he was wrong already?
Well,
no. I think honestly, I think it's gonna take. No, go ahead with what you're saying.
Well, I was just saying, but do you think wouldn't you want to get him ready in case you do have to throw him in? Do you want to throw him in against Minnesota right away, cold, or do you want to get him some experience if you need to make this change? Or is Kirk like not capable of doing such things.
I don't think Kirk sees it as a change he needs to make. Cade
Yeah.
had one really good half of football where
Mhm.
he played really well. In a
Mhm.
Kirk Ferentz offense, 1 out of 4 halves of football throwing the ball well, I think is enough. I'm serious.
I know
I
you
think that's
are.
I think that's enough for him.
You're right.
And
You're right.
I don't think he sees Cade as having a big problem because he had a bad game. I think thinks Cade had one kind of bad game and that Cade will probably bounce back and play a lot better this week. And guess what? The competition's worse. Cade probably will bounce back and play a lot better this week.
Okay.
So maybe maybe we're wrong. Maybe come Saturday, it's going to be Brendan Sullivan taking the snaps. But again, Brendan Sullivan throws a lot of picks. And I just think Kirk is so allergic to turnovers that he's going to ride with Cade as long as possible. I think it would take, if Cade loses to Minnesota, then maybe we're talking about a change. But I just don't see Kirk admitting he was wrong. I just don't see him admitting he was wrong yet. I don't think he thinks he's wrong.
Well,
I think he thinks he's going to be proven right and that Cade's going to get better and better as the year goes on. And maybe he will.
Yeah.
Maybe he will. But I don't know, man. From what I know about Kirk Ferentz and past quarterback battles, he is really reticent more than other coaches to go to the backup. He really doesn't want to do it. He has an idea in his head of how he's going to win the game. He's factored that all in. He doesn't want to all of a sudden have a bunch of different variables. Like, that is not his style. He has already figured out how he wants to attack everybody this year. And he does not want to have to shift that on the fly because they have a different quarterback with a different skill set.
Yeah. Well,
right? Or am I
wrong? You're probably right. You're probably right. I just, I don't know. If he doesn't look like he's getting it together, or if it takes until the second half for them to get rolling,
it's Troy. It's Troy, man. I feel like he's going to look good.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
But we'll see. Maybe he won't. Maybe he won't. I don't know.
I expect him to look pretty good. I do. Yeah.
But it'll be interesting if we're talking about a quarterback change in Iowa City. So that'll be something to track. That is on. It's definitely until Cade plays better, there are going to be people talking about it.
True. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we have Oh, wait. Did we do scores?
Oh, no, we did not. Nope.
Yep.
So let's see here. I have Iowa 42, Troy 10.
I've got Iowa 35, Troy 6.
Okay.
I think that, I think it's a get right game. I think they circle the wagons. I think that Cade has a really nice first half, and then they get a lot of backups reps in the second half at some point. So I think I think by next week, Kirk will be talking about how great Cade's playing, and we'll be clear that it's not going to happen as a switch for Minnesota.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm wrong. We'll find out.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, we have the Northern Iowa Panthers visiting the number 23 ranked Nebraska Cornhuskers. This is a 6:30 p.m. game on the Big Ten Network. There's no line as it's a bad FCS team. Northern Iowa beat Valparaiso 35-7 and beat St. Thomas 17-10.
Ooh.
The QB Aiden Dunn is completing 54.8% of his passes for just 5.1 yards per attempt, 3 TDs and 0 picks. The running backs are Ty Edwards and Amari Pesic-Hickson. They haven't figured out a way to get the passing game really going this year. So Nebraska's going to name their score, man. Dylan Raiola is going to do what he wants, but mostly I expect Nebraska to run the ball effectively with Ramir Johnson, Dante Dowdell, Emmett Johnson. Isaiah Nair and Jamal Banks will be able to make some plays. I don't see this as being any kind of competitive contest. I think this is going to be a scrimmage at best.
I agree. I'm just curious if he's going to sit on that lead in the second half like he did last week.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay.
I think he's going to score. I think he's going to score a bunch of points. I don't know. We'll see. But I don't see Northern Iowa putting up a lot of resistance.
Oh no, I don't either. I just curious of I want to see if he's going to be super, super aggressive or if he's going to do, pull which again he didn't have to last week against Colorado. So he had it was not a big deal for him to sit on that lead because Colorado was not able to do anything.
Colorado had no chance of scoring.
Exactly.
I'm sure Matt Rule last week at halftime, because we can talk about it. Colorado dominated, Nebraska dominated Colorado. But it was 28-0 at half. And I think Matt Rule realized, hey, as long as I don't turn the ball over, they can't win.
Yeah.
Because they don't have enough offense.
Yeah.
And they won 28-10. So he definitely took his foot off the gas and played conservatively in the second half, but it wasn't a terrible decision, as they were firmly in control of the game, and he was right that Colorado was not able to do anything to come back on them.
Yeah.
So I think that was a fine decision, but yeah, against a team where they're so overmatched though, like Northern Iowa, I think they're just going to be able to keep scoring from just running the ball.
Yeah. I expect to see Harburg in there at some point in time too.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I've got the Nebraska Cornhuskers 63, Northern Iowa Panthers 0.
Okay. I've got the Nebraska Cornhuskers 52, the Northern Iowa Panthers 0.
Yeah. Should be pretty lopsided.
Yep.
If it's not, we'll have something to talk about. But
yep.
I guess we won't have much to talk about for Nebraska this week, except for to pat them on the back and tell them they did a good job.
Yep. You did what you were supposed to.
Yep. All right. Next up, we've got a conference game, John. A conference game.
Ooh.
We have the Indiana Hoosiers going to Pasadena to play against the UCLA Bruins. This is a 6:30 p.m. game on NBC. The line is Indiana by 3. UCLA is 1-0 after surviving a trip to Hawaii, 16-13. UCLA had a bye last week, which is good because they looked terrible against Hawaii, if we're being honest.
Yes.
Ethan Garber has completed just 50% of his passes for 7.2 yards per attempt, 1 TD and 2 picks. Woof.
Mm-hmm.
Bruins were unable to run the ball as Garbers led the team in rushing at 47 yards. Keegan Jones and TJ Harden couldn't get going. Rico Flores at wide receiver was the savior of the game with 102 yards receiving, including a touchdown. And the tight end, Maliki Matavao, and wide receiver J. Michael Sturdivant will try to get going this week after being limited to 3 catches apiece in the opener. In contrast, Indiana's been great, albeit against lesser competition. Curtis Rourke is completing 73% of his passes for 10.9 yards per attempt, 3 TDs and 0 picks. Justice Ellison, Tyson Lawton, and Elijah Green have all contributed at running back. Omar Cooper, Elijah Surratt, and Miles Price form a good trio at wide receiver, and they'll be even better when Donovan McCulley gets back from injury.
Mm-hmm.
I expect this to be a close game. Indiana's still a new team, and they have to go on the road to the West Coast and play against them in an adverse circumstance for the first time this year. I think there's going to be nerves, and I would expect both teams to clunk around a little bit in the first half. Mm-hmm. I think this is going to be a really close game, John. How do you see this one playing out?
I think it's fair to point out that Indiana really hasn't played anybody of note at this point in time, and they've looked amazing, which again, they did exactly what they're supposed to do in those instances. I guess right now, even saying that, because let's just be honest too, that UCLA playing Hawaii was not a very impressive win. And with the way they played on the field against a lesser opponent,
it was alarming.
It was alarming. So to see that Cignetti has Indiana, even though they're playing inferior opponents, basically rolling on all cylinders, it makes me definitely lean towards the Hoosiers. I think they look more electric. I think they look like they've got a lot more going on offensively. Their defense looks more solid and in sync. Not to say UCLA doesn't have talent on the field. It just seems like Cignetti has them going and has them together. Where, yes, after this bye, maybe Deshaun Foster has got them back in sync and they're able to move the ball and able to do something and look a lot better this week. Like, and seeing Ethan Garber's look like the quarterback, a lot of people projected him to be. It's possible. But with Indiana having a couple games now of experience and feeling themselves out and, knowing what their identity is, I think it's going to give them the edge. I think the Hoosiers have the edge here. I think they're probably excited to be in the Rose Bowl, which may be the first time they've ever been. I don't know.
Thanks, then 68.
They did? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, welcome back. It's exciting, but I'm just not sure at this point in time, after seeing that horrible performance against Hawaii, that UCLA is going to be ready at this point in time either. I think with Indiana having the extra experience, it's going to help them and work in their favor.
What do you got for a score?
I have Indiana 35, UCLA 28.
Interesting. High scoring. I don't think so. I think it's going to be ugly.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be ugly. I think we're going to see turnovers. I think we're going to see penalties. I think it's going to be the first conference game. Both teams are going to be playing really hard, but are going to be feeling kind of tight.
Okay.
And maybe play a little tight. I think it'll be really close in the first half. But ultimately, I think Indiana is better on the line of scrimmage, and I think they have more weapons.
Mm-hmm.
But the main thing I think is the line of scrimmage, where I just think that UCLA is really bad.
Yeah.
And I don't think Indiana's great up front, but I do think they're better than UCLA. So I have the Indiana Hoosiers 20, the UCLA Bruins 10.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I see both quarterbacks coming out looking good. I think Garbers.
I hope you're right.
Yeah, I think Garbers.
Your game sounds more fun.
Yeah, I think Garbers has a bit of a comeback, but it's just not enough because Indiana is basically more in sync, like I said, and I agree. I think at the line of scrimmage as well, I think that's definitely going to come into play. So, but I can see some fireworks
for sure, absolutely. All right, next up we have the Eastern Illinois Panthers at the Northwestern Wildcats. So a battle of cats sort of game. It's a 6:30 p.m. game on the Big Ten Network. There's no line because it's an FCS team once again.
Yeah, this should be a blowout. Illinois blew them out 45-0 already this season. This is a good time to bring in new quarterback Lausch and get him ready before conference play. I also really want to see someone break out at the running back position.
Yes.
You gotta figure out your running game
Hyman, man. It's got to be Hyman.
Yeah.
It's not Cam Porter is not it. It's got to be Hyman. Give him more carries. Let him prove it.
I got to see that. I think the defense is obviously, the defense I think should be able to pitch a shutout here. Offense, just get your quarterback. Get your quarterback into a rhythm. Get him the experience he needs. Find your running game. Find your offensive identity. Because right now, we're not sure what that is. And you got to do it now. Because you're going to be playing Washington next week. So you're starting conference play. And it better happen. Defense, I think you're going to be you're getting there, but the offense is a mess as of right now. So let's get it going, Northwestern. I still see a blowout. I still think that this is going to be no contest because Eastern Illinois is terrible. So I have Northwestern 38 to Eastern Illinois nothing.
I've got Northwestern 34, Eastern Illinois 3.
Okay.
I think they sneak in a field goal at some point. They get in field goal range, but I think just the one time.
Okay.
All right. Last up, we have the Maryland Terrapins heading to Virginia. This is a 7 p.m. game on the ACC network, and the line is Maryland by 2.5. Virginia Cavaliers, excuse me.
Yes. Well, this I think is going to be a fun game.
Oh, yeah.
I think this is going to be a really fun game. This is two pretty high-flying offenses, two good quarterbacks. I think Billy Edwards Jr. has proven now to show that he can get the job done at the quarterback position.
Yes,
but he's also facing off against Anthony Calandria, or Calandria, I think.
Calandria.
Yeah, who had a 71.6 QBR last week, 357 yards, 8.83 average, 3 TDs. He did throw 2 interceptions though.
Sure.
So he's aggressive. He's an aggressive passer. He throws a great ball. Yep. He's also a bit of a threat with his legs. So he's going to have, the Maryland defense is going to have their hands full with him. Also, with the running game is obviously a little bit less of a threat. So Virginia, as far as running the ball, I'm not really that worried about that. But the interesting thing was Virginia was actually down until the fourth quarter against Wake Forest, and they were able to come back. But that was all based off of Calandria's arm. So they have a lot of weapons. Malachi Fields is amazing. Tyler Neville was able to come down with the ball plenty of times. He had 2 touchdowns. He's a solid tight end. I think what we're going to see here is 2 offenses that are pretty efficient at throwing the ball, just not great at running the ball.
Yeah.
And so really what I think this game is going to come down to is who can establish the run. And if you can establish a run and have that passing game, be able to complement that and be able to get that up and running, I think you're going to see, that team is going to come out winning in the end. I think there's going to be a lot of fireworks in this game. Both quarterbacks are solid. They've got great targets downfield. But you're going to need that running game to step up to on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively with Virginia, I think they have trouble stopping the run. I think but they do have a decent pass rush from the edge. They did seem to get step up their game a little bit at the end with a pair of sacks, which obviously helped them win in the end. But they have trouble stopping the run. So can Roman Hemby, be more effective in this running game? And if Maryland can make that happen, I think they got a game here. But again, it all comes down to that Maryland offensive line, and I have not seen it yet against solid competition.
Yeah. It's been bad.
So I think it's going to be close, but I think there's going to be fireworks.
Oh, yeah. I think we're going to see a lot of game. I bet Locks is going to have some really good stuff drawn up for the first quarter. Just absolute fireworks for the first quarter. I would whatever the first quarter half or the first half over is, if I were a betting man, would be what I was on.
Yes. I think what this is going to come down to is Loxley knows he needs a bounce back here. And that he can show he can come back after a loss like Michigan State.
Yep. And
Virginia is going to need to be a statement win. So I think Maryland has a lot more to lose in this game. And I see Loxley being able to drop some good plays and start, come out to a hot start. And Virginia is just going to be playing catch up for the vast majority of the game. But I do see a lot of scoring. So I see Maryland 42, Virginia 35.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I've got the Maryland Terrapins 41 and the Virginia Cavaliers 38.
Wow.
I think it comes right down to the wire. I think this is a make a field goal and win, miss a field goal and lose kind of game.
Okay.
I think Loxley needs it bad.
Mm-hmm.
It was a bad loss. He shouldn't have lost to Michigan State. They had Aiden Childs threw 3 picks, and he still lost that game somehow. He gave it away at 2 possessions at the end when he could have iced it and just gave it away. I think Locks wants this one desperately. I think Maryland rallies around him, and I think Maryland gets the win.
Yeah, I agree. I also think Maryland's defense is going to show up more disciplined, and they'll be looking a lot better this week, and they'll be able to do enough to keep the Calandria in check as much as they can, because he is very talented. So he will score, but I think they'll end up doing enough.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right, John, we previewed all the games.
Yeah, here we go. Another great week coming up.
I'm so pumped for week 3 in the Big Ten. Is there anything you want us to tell the people before we go?
Yes, as always, if you want to find Mike and John here on We Live for Saturday, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Podcast Addict. You can find us on Twitter at We Live for B1GSat. You can find Mike at Alibaba26. You can find me, John, at Norwegian Gopher. You can also email us with any questions, thoughts, suggestions. We Live for Saturday, b1g@gmail.com.
Yes, please hit us up and criticize our picks. We love it. Tell us why we're wrong.
Yeah,
always. We're happy to hear it. All right, well, thanks for rocking with us all this time, and we are excited for this week of football, and we will see you on Monday for the review show.
Mm-hmm.